Thanks for doing that, Tammy. So just let me know when it's recording and I'll switch over.
We are now recording, and I'm going to go ahead and manually mute everyone who is not participating, just so that we don't get feedback noise, but you can just easily unmute that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen when you're ready to speak.
Great. So this is our first Idaho Academic Library virtual meetup. We are planning 2 other virtual meetings in the next couple months, and we have not set the dates for those yet, but we have the topics identified. The next meeting will be on textbook affordability and using open educational resources and library resources to make college experience less onersome for students, and we're looking forward to that. If you are passionate about that topic and want to be one of our presenters, please email Tammy or myself, as we have not set that next virtual meetup yet. And then our third topic is information literacy and how different universities are tackling that. And then we're also hoping to get some voices from secondary school librarians heard at that session. And then those are also 3 topics that are going to be covered during the in-person, face-to-face Moss Meetup in McCall, and we're super excited about that. So we just opened registration, and it looks like we're already getting people registered for that, and we'll have a little slide after today's virtual meetup that talks a little bit more about that. But we're super excited to try to be meeting the needs of academic library staff in a, as Tammy mentioned earlier, in a more intentional approach. We've done some listening tours at academic libraries. We're listening to feedback from the communication surveys, and just hoping to do better at that. So if you have suggestions, please pass those along to myself or Tammy, who are also the hosts for today. So there's Tammy, our Deputy State Librarian, and I'm the State Librarian for those of you who I have not had the opportunity to meet yet. And Tammy and I are both pretty passionate about today's topic. We have been doing sort of sessions mostly for public library staff on the library's role in decreasing social isolation and being more intentional about the things that we do to increase patron wellness, in particular the social isolation. And I think we presented at a LILAC meeting, and there were several academic librarians there who were talking about the needs on campuses. And certainly some of you have been working on this topic for many, many years, but it was a little bit newer to us. And I happened to be at the University of Idaho Library last spring, and this was one of the topics that they had on their whiteboard that they share with students, and I thought it was really brought home some of the things that we're going to be talking about, the things that students list as being some of their fears and what scares them. You know, being lonely, living until death with crushing student debt, the future, climate collapse, politics, no love, my credit card score, some things on there probably that even librarians can relate to. So some pretty heavy things that they're thinking about, and just wanted to share a few statistics before we have our librarian guest speakers talk about what they're doing in their institutions. So you heard some of the concerns from U of I students, but college students in general, when they're surveyed, indicate academic performance, pressure to succeed, and post-graduation plans as their top concerns. And then financial stress is also a major contributor that both directly and indirectly affects student anxiety. Financial stress is associated with decreases in both mental and physical health, as well as increases in anxiety. And we know that of entering college freshmen from surveys that have been done, 65% report having either some concern or major concerns about being unable to complete their college degree because of financial reasons. Anxiety has been increasing for the student population over the last few decades. A large portion of college students report feeling overwhelmed, feeling exhausted, and that's feeling overwhelmed is 84%, feeling exhausted 79%, feeling hopeless 46%, or having experienced overwhelming anxiety 51% while in school. And this is particularly problematic because anxiety is related to attrition, lower academic performance, less job satisfaction. We know that all of our academic institutions are concerned about retention. That's an issue that all of us are looking at. So some pretty sobering statistics to kind of start the conversations about why this is so important, and then what different folks are doing about that. So I wanted to start with our first speaker for today, and sort of the format for today's session is we've invited some librarians to talk about what their institutions are doing about student well-being. And then you can type your questions into the chat box. We'll save time after University of Idaho and VSU do their presentations. And then we're going to open it up to you to share what you're doing at your institutions. Hopefully we'll get a few more people joining us in the next hour. And then we'll wrap up by kind of previewing what the MOS meetup might look like and answering your questions there. So if that sounds okay to folks, then I'm going to introduce Jessica Martinez. She's the science librarian at the University of Idaho. She cares deeply about making libraries welcoming places for students and helping them succeed. And her other interests include library marketing, open education, reference services, and her dog, Bee. So Jessica, I'm going to see if I can unshare my screen so that you can advance your slides.
Okay, and now I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my slides? All right. Yes, so I'm Jessica Martinez, and I'm going to talk about the University of Idaho Libraries student well-being initiatives. And so this is a picture of me and my husband and our dog Bee. And apart from working at U of I, I'm also part of ICfL's Special Projects Library Action Team that sends out the Curiosity Report every other week. And I'm also the Academic Roundtable Chair for the Idaho Library Association, which is part of why I'm working on for the Meetup at the end of July, which is so exciting. So these are what I'm going to talk about today, our initiatives: the board game collection, our Welcome Week activities, therapy dogs, library mini golf, our team tech room, the Vandal Food Pantry, food for fines, and open education initiatives. This is not comprehensive. I'm glad that Stephanie shared the photo of our whiteboard, but these are just some of the things that are going on that I'm really excited about. A lot of these are really new, and we've been doing for like the last year or just a little bit longer than that. So the first one is our board game collection. And we had about 30 games in 2019 that we have started circulating, and it's been very successful. Those 30 games circulated about 500 times in 1 year, which after loaning out headphones and phone chargers is our top circulated item. We added 15 more games in January of this year since it's so successful, and so now we have lots and lots of games for students to check out. We host events at the library and also participate in campus events with these, like Vandal overnight games or cereal and board games that's run by our student association. The board games collection was one of our first, I think, really purposeful student well-being initiatives because it's meant for community building, that playing games is a way to not feel so alone on campus, to make friends. And apart from being fun in that community building aspect, it also teaches students how to use the library, to not only look up a game in the catalog, but to find it and check it out a lot of students, this might be the first thing they've ever checked out at our library, and it's a little bit less intimidating than finding an academic book. This year, we also did Welcome Week for the first time. So that consisted of the first 2 weeks of school. And one of the things we did was set up a table outside of the library and answered students' questions that were mostly directional, that they usually came into the reference desk for, like, where's my class? Where's this building on campus? I don't know, like, where is the food? All those kinds of things. And apart from answering those kinds of questions, we also had handouts, including our new My Library stickers that somebody liked so much that they took a picture of and shared on Instagram, which is very exciting. But that we sat outside the library for 2 weeks, and that was really successful. And I think a lot of students were less lost and scared those first 2 weeks of school because we were there, especially the first couple days. Other parts of the Welcome Week included a Learn to Draw Joe Vandal event that was just for fun, and a virtual reality drop-in to play the Vive in our Center for Digital Inquiry and Learning. Again, just for fun and to introduce those spaces to students. We did have a fail forward moment for Welcome Week. We tried to do a scavenger hunt, social media scavenger hunt, where we would hide this 3D printed Joe Vandal all over the library and give clues. And then people were supposed to try and find him. And no one tried to find Joe. So we scrapped that after 2 days because it was really not working and taking up a lot of the social media energy that we wanted directed towards the other fun things we were doing those weeks. And then our final thing we did for Welcome Week that we've continued since is therapy dogs. Like Stephanie was saying, a lot of students, it's so easy to feel overwhelmed and exhausted. And what better way to feel better than to pet a dog? So we did this for Welcome Week, and we've done it, I think, at least again during finals week. Here's a photo from December. And then I think even once more since then, and are continuing to do it. It's hard to keep really accurate numbers, but at least 100 people have engaged in some way every time we've had the dogs in the library. So just another way to make students feel a little bit less anxiety about school and life. For the first time this fall, we also partnered with some other campus organizations for the Master the Midterms event, which was an event meant to educate students about resources on campus that would help them succeed at midterms, but also help them de-stress. And so we created library mini golf. And you can see from this photo that we used library items. Our budget was $0, and everything we used, someone either brought in from home or we found in the basement. It's amazing what you can find in a basement. And so library mini golf, we set up 9 holes on the first 2 floors of the library. And apart from being fun, was meant to make students more comfortable in the library and teach them about some of our spaces. And we're gonna try that again next fall. But it was really fun to build. And I think the library employees really enjoyed. Different departments each built their own little mini golf course. So that was popular. We've also opened up one of our group study rooms to be a team tech room that is Zoom capable. A lot of students have been asking for a place where they could do job interviews. You know, like when you're a student, you don't have anywhere you can go that's quiet and professional looking. And I think it certainly caused me a lot of anxiety in school. And so I can imagine that these students who are asking for this space also feel pretty anxious about it. So apart from being a reservable space for campus groups or study groups, individuals can book this for Zoom interviews and just any reason they would need that. We also, for the last year or two, have had a Vandal food pantry. Food insecurity is a pretty big problem on campus. One study found that 22% of UI students experienced food insecurity, which is defined as a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life. And how are you supposed to do well in school if you're hungry? It doesn't compute. So we have a Vandal food pantry. It's placed in a part of our library that's accessible 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, but also kind of tucked away, so it's not really visible and you're not on display if you're taking food out of the food pantry. And that's a campus partnership with our Center for Volunteerism and Social Action, as well as our student association. And part of that is that we also have food for fines now, where students can bring in canned food donations to pay for their overdue fines at the end of the semester. And then to also address financial health of students, which is a huge burden for most students, is we have our open education initiatives, which I'll be excited to go to that talk when we talk just about open education initiatives. But we have a few at U of I. One of them is the Think Open Fellow Program, where instructors are given some money to create an open educational resource, or just use one to save students money. And in this instructor here, Ross Miller, is a physics instructor, and he implemented an OpenStax textbook for his physics class, which impacted 140 students, which is savings of at least $40,000. So that's a huge amount of money, and just a little bit less stress for those students. Some of the next things we're thinking about for student wellness are civic engagement. So what can we do to help get students counted for the 2020 census, and what can we do to get them registered to vote? So if you all have any great thoughts on that, love to hear them. So why? These are just my reasons why. I just put this together. But it improves student success academically, because we all care about retention, but also as humans. And it makes students more comfortable with the library and campus. It saves students money. It improves student mental health through de-stress activities and community building. Caring about students as members of our community is the right thing to do. And also it's fun. I think the main theme of all of these is they're a lot of fun to put together, these initiatives that help students. So that is all that I have, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our BSU librarians and then talking about this more. And I will stop sharing this screen.
Tammy, did you see any questions that came up in the chat box for Jessica before we move on to a couple other presentations?
No, I didn't see any.
Okay. Well, then it's my great pleasure. Let's see if we can, why that's not sharing. Sorry about that. There we go. It's my great pleasure to introduce two terrific librarians from Boise State University's Albertsons Library. We have Elizabeth Ramsey. She's an associate professor and librarian at Boise State University's Albertson Library. She's a liaison to programs in the School of Public Service, as well as the Center for Global Education. And among her research interests are critical information literacy and outreach to underrepresented students in higher education. And we also have with us Mary Aagard. She recently transitioned from the role of Head of Access Services to Interim Head of Acquisitions and Collections at Boise State University. Though this seems like a giant leap across librarian disciplines, Mary's passion for student success is a theme that unifies both areas. She's a liaison to the Communication and Media Department, and her research interests include student wellness, resource accessibility, and collection development philosophies. And I know that Mary and Elizabeth have presented at ILA conferences and have written a paper, and so we're going to be able to start with Elizabeth. You want to kick us off here?
Elizabeth, you are still muted. You want to bottom left-hand corner, you should be able to
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Great. And Mary, do you want to share your screen? If we can do that. Mary had some slides.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Do you need to unshare, Stephanie? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'll go ahead and put.
And you're going to see that we have great minds think alike. A lot of the things that we're doing are very similar to what Jessica described. But one thing that we found when we did our research for our article is that collaboration is often key to success in ongoing efforts. Usually there are entities on campus whose wellness initiatives, that's their core mission. And so if we can partner with them, then they can help as far as, you know, Jessica mentioned no money. We got no money either, but often because wellness is the core mission of other entities on campus, they have the money for it and they just want the space or some promotions or other ideas. And we also discovered that this holistic idea of wellness has been around for going on 50 years. We used Hetler's model of wellness. It includes these dimensions that you've talked about already, and you can see on your screen: social, financial, emotional, intellectual, environmental, physical, spiritual, and probably physical? No. I'm not sure what the last one is. Anyway, we work to collaborate with folks to promote what they're doing. I was approached by a graduate student in community health who was working on a project with her advisor on food insecurity. And so from her work, they've developed a food pantry, and we use something called Toilet Talk. They're flyers that are put in little holders inside all of our restrooms stalls, so you get a captive audience. And we were able to get the word out about the food pantries. And then at another point, there were some safety initiatives. And so we partnered with campus security and to talk about those ideas. And so that's one way, and we also have a slide program and a pretty robust social media program. So that's one way that we can promote these ideas out to people from our promotional spaces. And then Mary is going to talk to you a little bit more about all of the things that she's been doing. Take it away, Mary.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, like you know, Jessica mentioned, we have a lot of the same, we've done a lot of the same initiatives at Boise State as it sounds like they have at the University of Idaho. And I kind of want to group what I talk about in these different places. So, you know, you have your formal partnerships that a lot of times end up being a co-location. So it's the library space is being used, but another department is providing the programming or the handouts or the flyers or whatever. And our
dogs.
Yes, our foyer space, our entry space in the library has been used more increasingly for these purposes. We've actually needed to build a kind of a space use policy as well around it so that we can encourage the use of those spaces for campus groups and also help protect the space for students who, you know, maybe don't want to be talked to as they come in and out of the library. So we've had some of our more successful and long-lasting partnerships have been with health services. They have a couple of different parts, and one is one of the first things we sponsored and hosted in this realm of wellness was our campus nutritionist contacted us to find out if they can have these snack events in the library. So they have, they bring healthy snacks or healthy snack ideas and hand out treats to any student who comes and talks to them with recipes, and some of them they had to make the snack, some of them they just handed out the snack. So they were like tips for a healthy life. So now they come several times a semester and hand out snacks and treats and nutritional tips to our students. We've also had flu shot clinics in the library. So our health services will bring over all the supplies for giving people flu shots. They promote it across campus, and for staff and people who live, you know, who work in adjacent buildings, we love the flu shots. I'm sure students take part in that as well, and I hope they do, because they'll bill your insurance, or, you know, it's seamless. You kind of fill out a paperwork, they give you a shot, it's great. And that has also been something that people have looked forward to every fall. And I think we've done that 4 years now. We've had representatives from Campus Student Financials come and table. They have handed out financial information to students, but they've also invited them to come to their events that are at different times and places, trying to spread the word about what resources are available to students around financial wellness. And then one thing that we've done as a library staff that isn't an event or outreach is we've done a lot of intentional training around mental health and around safety. So we've had the director of the mental health program and health services come and talk to library staff. And we've talked about what we call a care report, which is reporting or information gathering around students who may be in crisis. And so we've been trained or have been informed about campus resources available to students and to staff. And then we've also done LGBTQ training, ally training as a way to educate ourselves in these issues where we can help make students feel more comfortable and more safe in our spaces. And then so around as libraries place, like a lot of libraries are doing, we think about students in all different aspects, like we have ergonomic furniture, we have standing desks, we try to have computer workstations that are available for people who are in larger wheelchairs to wheel up into. So thinking about students and their ergonomic needs and their physical needs, and then how they like to study. So we have group study spaces, individual study spaces, collaborative spaces, quiet spaces. We try to have as comfortable furniture as makes sense for library spaces. And so we try to think about how they want to learn, how they want to study, and how they want to work with their peers, and how we design our spaces and our furniture. It's challenging when you have very little budget for making some of those changes, but trying to think ahead to if we could, or how we can change the space to accommodate the types of learners that use it. And some places have lactation space or room for that. The library provides a space for that. And I know a lot of libraries provide reflection rooms or meditation spaces. We haven't quite adopted one of those spaces yet, but it's been talked about. And then the last thing that we do, which was the first thing I thought of, is there's a lot of efforts around finals relief in the wellness sphere, because it is a particularly stressful time for our students. And so at Boise State, our library hours are longer. We are open 24 hours for selected days during the periods around finals. We have extra help on hand. Different departments will bring in snacks. So university dining has been bringing in snacks, as well as our student government will bring in late night snacks for students. We'll have our own staff have made these finals relief bags, and we throw out puzzles and coloring sheets, and to try to make a relaxed, supportive atmosphere so that students feel like it's a good place to be, especially if they're in there over in these later hours, which they're not normally there. So we try to make the space available to them. So we've done, a lot of different things to think about ways students can engage with the building and with our resources in that way. And this, just a list of the different people that we have partnered with to help us bring these kinds of services to our students.
And it really is about relationship building, isn't it? Stephanie and Tammy were talking about the idea of social isolation. And so I think a lot of the things that we can do can improve their sense of belonging, that they belong here at the university. I think libraries are well positioned to be able to do that. So we try to make sure that they see themselves in the spaces and recognize that we're doing what we can to help improve their capabilities to connect to help when they need it, and also to connect socially. I wish I'd gotten a screenshot of the Twitter conversation that we have that talks about yeah, I go to the library to meet people, and somebody's like, dude, but you can't talk there. And the other one was like, yeah, you can. On Friday, the library was lit. And we just really thought that was great, that they think of the library as a social hub, as the welcoming place that we're trying to establish in their minds. Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Well, thank you for our presenters who were able to present some of the great things that they're doing at their institutions. It looks like Sandy from ISU has asked about your efforts to do assessments. Have you done surveys, taken comments on any of these initiatives? Assessment is a big part of what we do in libraries, so if each of you could talk a little bit about your efforts in that area, I think that'd be great.
I'll take a crack at it real fast to just say we haven't really at Boise State. And I've had a concern, well, so we talked about it because at first I was worried students would find our tabling initiatives annoying because I was worried about that. Like, do they feel like they're being harassed as they come in and out of the library? And I think that is, and we don't do it every day. I mean, it's not a constant interruption, and we try to keep it in the same space all the time. So students who come in the library frequently aren't going to be surprised that there's a table around the corner when there normally isn't. But that is an avenue for like, I mean, the treats get taken. People talk to the people at the table, but I always worry about that a little bit. Are we intruding on a space they think should be more anonymous than it's turning into? So no assessment done yet that I know of. I wasn't in the library last semester, so who knows, but that's my experience with that.
I think we do surveys biannually, and they talk, and we ask students and staff and faculty about their sense of kind of their sense of welcome at the library. And so overall, I think we have worked well to have a welcoming environment, that the responses have been favorable there. And an outside entity did, what was it, a heat survey, and that would show the library as literally the hot spot on campus. So we're not sure that that can be attributed to our well-being, but I'm going to say it does.
Yeah, and we're doing something similar to that at U of I for our events, like, you know, keeping track of about how many people attend the therapy dogs, or we have how many people check out board games, and there is a tally sheet somewhere for how many people stop by the table at Welcome Week. And we did for library mini golf. That was something that I was involved in enough to know about the assessment. But we did have like qualitative, like a little paper survey, and asked how people felt about it. But I guess then the hard thing with assessment is what is the successful number, or what is the successful response? And that's the hard part, is even if we have it, is what's enough enthusiasm or buy-in to keep going, I guess.
And how well can we connect our endeavors to things like retention, and what are the measures of wellness that we can say that we contributed to?
Exactly. Yeah.
Good points. Other questions that you have for our presenters before we turn the tables back to you and ask what your academic library is doing to support student wellness?
And feel free to just unmute your microphone and ask, or you're also welcome to use the chat.
Is that sharing, Tammy?
Yes, it's sharing just fine.
Okay. I can't see it for some reason on my screen. So I know that LCSC checks out seasonal affective disorder lights, and that other academic libraries are exploring other things that they're doing for student wellness, and would love to hear what's going on at ISU and Stevens Henniger College and other institutions. So we'll open it up for other institutions to share.
I would share from ISU. I saw some familiar projects. Sorry. I am really sorry. Things that we have done, I've seen talked about here today. We have a newsletter we call Writing on the Stall. It's a single sheet newspaper, and we tape it to the back of the stall door in the restrooms, and we place it at about where reading height if you're seated. We also did a scavenger hunt this fall, and we had done food for fines for quite a while, and then stopped because we couldn't get the administration to acknowledge the fines release from our system. But we've since worked that out, and now we can go back to doing food for fines. We did that this fall too. One thing that was really a hit this fall that we did was an escape room. Students could sign up in groups to go into the escape room that staff had created, and based on clues and teamwork, they could figure out how to escape from the room. That was really well received, I would say. Oh, thank you, Spencer. Yes, we do blood drives twice a year, twice an academic year. And we also do flu shots, but right up to now, it's been for the staff only, and it's making me think we could look at broadening that.
Yeah, I think that would be great if they allowed you to broaden it out a little bit, and I can totally see how that'd be a great service for faculty and staff, but super convenient for students too.
This is Ben, also from ISU. I'm one of the health sciences librarians, and my colleague Kristen Whitman and I got approached by our career and testing services program here on campus and talked to us about putting together a LibGuide that specifically showcased the resources that we have available to all the students, whether they're the ebook or the physical book, and make this LibGuide so that students can go to them and access them quickly. So if they do feel the courage to go and chat with our career and testing services, and they recommend things from those the professionals there recommend materials that we have in the library, we were able to share those and put a link of what we are working on, our very first version of this LibGuide, into the chat. And we are seeing that these materials, the ebooks, are being used. We are seeing that the physical books have been actually checked out, some already this year, just by looking at statistics. So we're excited to see this, and we're happy that the career and testing services, that their professional recommendations are coming to us, so that way we can help support the students in any way we can.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a great idea. Other things that other people are doing or want advice about, or trying for the first time, or considering trying?
We have done mini golf in the past, but we did it as a Saturday only event, and we eventually stopped doing it because it was so labor intensive to set up and maintain. But there could be options that we could look at of making something that is less featured as a one-time event, but something that goes on maybe, I don't know, a couple of days worth that we advertise. that go on while the library is in operation.
Yeah, good idea. I thought it was interesting that many academic libraries really focus on the finals week and exam periods, midterms, all those. But some of the research has been done that student anxiety particularly for freshmen, the first few weeks of school is super high. And thought that was nice that the U of I library staff were looking at ways to try to be more proactive in welcoming students from those first couple weeks, and the number of students that miss their dogs versus their parents, I think, was disconcerting as a parent of college kids. But I thought that was such a great idea that so many are doing that. I also, while we're waiting for some questions and comments, when Tammy and I have been looking at the social isolation for public libraries, and this is something that I think we'll be able to spend a little bit more time on with the in-person meeting, is really looking at the ways that you set up the space and promote programs, welcoming people, and how you can make those connections so that if you do have host a library program, that students have the opportunity to get to know other students, particularly for those first few weeks where they may not have many friends yet. They're still missing their connections back in their hometown, and just thinking about those ways that you can set the space up and promote those interactions between students. How public libraries are doing that, or how academic libraries are encouraging that. Any comments or suggestions or ideas that you've tried that help promote that student-to-student interaction?
I don't know, if I missed it, forgive me if Elizabeth or Mary mentioned it. It's not a library-specific initiative, but here at Boise State, one of the other departments has what they call Family Table. And over in the Student Union building, they have scheduled times when students can meet to eat and have like a real meal where everyone sits down at the table. And I can't remember if it's like a weekly or a bi-weekly thing, but it kind of speaks to that idea of coming to a consistent group of people in a social atmosphere, getting to know people. And then I had a question for the group, but I don't want to derail what we're doing, so I'll swing back around to it in a minute.
No, I think it's okay to derail us, and what a nice idea that there's students don't have to eat alone if they, can meet other people and have that space set up for them, so it's not uncomfortable just to walk up to a group of strangers and say, do you mind if I join you? Not everybody's comfortable doing that. So Heather, why don't you go ahead and pose your question for the whole group?
Okay, well, I was curious because I mentioned the food pantry. Here at Boise State, we have a food pantry, and they tried to do what they called food lockers in various locations across campus, and the library was one of those. And I noticed when we were doing something else that was empty now, so we asked about it, and they said that there were too many non-students who were utilizing it, and so they pulled it. And I'm curious if anyone's encountered that, or if maybe we just have sort of a different community population, or how you overcame that.
Yeah, Jessica or somebody else that maybe has a library hosted food pantry, you want to tackle that?
I can speak to what we do at UI. Our Vandal Food Pantry, which is the campus-wide organization that kind of manages all the location pantries, was pretty explicit to us that they didn't care who took food. So they are really good about keeping it filled each week. And I also do think that we probably have different populations, and so it may, food might not go out as fast from community patrons as it would elsewhere. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. That was ours. The group that organizes it was like, it's just emptying a little too fast. They were also pretty new. I wonder now that they're more established if they'd be more open to an all-comers type model.
Right. And I think too, like assuming who is and isn't a student is pretty difficult. And that I mean, in the library, we had a known entity, and there was maybe somebody who we knew of but that may have caused some of these concerns. But part of me, when they put it in originally, it was like, we can't police this, and it needs to be open for all people. And also, it's kind of like sleeping in the library. You know how academic libraries, for the most part, don't have sleeping in the library rules that public libraries sometimes have to have. One, for us, it's you can't decide unless you are asking everybody for their IDs. It's hard to know who is and isn't a student, and you get into some uncomfortable places of profiling people because of what you assume a student is or what appropriate student behavior is. And that can be challenging conversations and sometimes hopefully to be avoided. But some of the wellness, you know, we've tried to stay out of the business of policing any of these wellness initiatives to a certain extent unless problem things happened, because we do have lots of maybe a lack of understanding of or a preconceived notion of what student behavior is. And when people are outside of those lines, it messes with us a little bit.
And then Sandy, or the folks from ISU, have you tried any food pantry type things that have worked, or any issues that you've run across?
There is a food pantry on campus. We did reach out to them to become an alternate spot. The pantry itself is in the student union. And we reached out to them with the idea of becoming a second place, and they were a little uncomfortable with that. They didn't. We could be a drop-off point, but they didn't like the idea of us being hosting a pantry ourselves. So.
It's always interesting to see how different departments work together at academic institutions. So, good point. Any other discussion items that people want to talk about before we kind of move on to a preview of the MOS Meetup, taking higher education to a higher elevation?
I had a question that kind of follows up on your last comment, Stephanie, as far as I'm curious what being at the state level, and my job is to help all of you all keep doing the awesome stuff that you're doing. And I'm curious what hurdles or barriers you've come up against, because I see one of the things that hopefully ICfL can take a look at is if there are ways that we can help remove some of those barriers to any programs that you're wanting to run that for whatever reason you're not able to. So I'm curious if there's an initiative you've wanted to do but have not done because you're like, oh gosh, we're never going to be able to do that. Or if there was an initiative you started and stopped doing because you came up against a barrier that you weren't able to navigate.
Awesome question, Dina. What do you think, group?
I think for us, it's often time where, and I'm really glad assessment was asked about, because without substantial data, how can you prove how valuable these initiatives are? So I'm seeing those two things. That you got a magic wand, Dina?
I'm working on it.
She can 3D print you one.
Kind of echoing Elizabeth's comments about assessment, I keep wishing that there was, I don't know, that I had more experience with the kind of quick and dirty assessment, like that would get you the information you needed, but wasn't, for me, I think sometimes we think assessment and we think this big unwieldy thing that you have to spend a lot of time on. And even like a bank of you have an event, here's a survey, you can modify it, something to kind of get us started so we're not just looking at a blank page.
Kristen, to that, I can say when I was at Boise State, I remember one of the things that we would do periodically to get feedback from students was really informal data gathering, because it can be really intimidating, not only as the person creating the data tool, but also the person attending the event. And kind of like folks from Boise State, I think, kind of alluded to, you know, wanting to not always have that carrot and stick going on of where, sure, you can come participate in this, but you're gonna have to fill out a survey about it. And so one of the things that we would do periodically is just write a question on a whiteboard, and, you know, maybe have it be a simple yes or no question, or yes or no, and then have room for feedback, and just have someone take a picture of it every day that you had it up. Was a really casual way to at least kind of gain some insight into if the things that we were doing were connecting with students, and if they weren't, if they had ideas that they were willing to share on how we could improve them.
That's excellent. Thank you.
And I love that you asked that question, because we are going to be looking for some poster sessions and lightning sessions at the Moss Meetup. And quick and dirty assessment tools might be a really awesome one for someone to cover, either through a poster or a lightning session. So Dina, that's a little thing to keep in the back of your mind if you want to maybe lead one of those sessions on that topic. And then if you have other topics that you're maybe not comfortable presenting on for a lightning talk or a poster session, but you think would be great, you can start chatting about those in the chat session, because part of we wanted to have a robust enough agenda for the face-to-face meetup that you could take that to your administration or whoever you need to run those by, and see that there's going to be, you know, information literacy covered, OERs, student well-being, but we also want to provide a lot of room for networking and those lightning sessions and poster sessions, so that you can really there's lots of ideas generated and talked about, and people can take away some fabulous ideas from other institutions around the state. So we do have the registration is open for our July 30th event in McCall. We've already had at least 3 people register, which I'm thrilled to see. So I hope you'll be able to attend. Breakfast and lunch are provided. The meeting space is secured thanks to our friends at University of Idaho Library. So thank you so much. What questions do you have about our meetup in McCall? And Tammy, I still can't see the chat box for some reason. So if you see something, or if you see people wanting to talk, let me know. And then we're also looking for people who want to join us in the planning. We'll have another Zoom meeting to talk about that and kind of look for maybe some of those gaps that might not be covered in the 3 main agenda items. And also, if you're, we are looking for some people who are really passionate about information literacy and that textbook affordability. If that's your thing, and you're doing some cool things at your institution that you'd like to share, again, please let us know. It's really important that we get everybody's voices heard and continue to share across institutions. So please contact us about that.
And in the chat, Benjamin mentioned that he was not aware of this. And Benjamin, you are now in the know. We opened this up yesterday, so you are amongst the first of the academic librarians in the state of Idaho to know about it. So please share the link and encourage we encourage you, and for you to invite any librarian to join us. It should be fun.
Yeah, we have room for at least 60 academic faculty and staff members to attend. So again, this is the first time that we've tried this, and having it really focused on the needs of academic library folks. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity. I think we took away some stuff from the virtual session today that we'll be able to fine tune for the session that we have about this topic there.
And to just clarify, it is open to faculty and staff of libraries. in the state of Idaho. So if you have a staff member who is not classified as faculty, they are also welcome to join us.
And I think that also brings up a good point that about this virtual session and the face-to-face session, that reaching out beyond Lib Idaho and really trying to reach more academic library folks. And if you have suggestions, I know Elizabeth said we should put it on Twitter and really get the word out through social media. We definitely are planning a mailing to and individual emails to academic folks, and wish I would have thought of that a little bit before today for this meeting, and would have tried to spread the word about this first virtual meetup, but other ideas that you might have for getting the word out would be welcomed. But I know
like Benjamin has a question about, is there a limit to how many from each institution may attend?
I don't think so. I think, you know, if, in fact, I think it's such a nice setting. We were even thinking about, well, maybe we should try and book Moss for the day before for a staff retreat while we're in the mountains of McCall and do some of that. So, boy, if you've got everybody on your library team who wants to go, I don't know how many folks are at ISU who might want to go, but right now there's no limit. So use the space, you know, there's plenty of time to plan, I think, I hope. For July 30th, it's low cost. We're not charging a registration fee, and we aren't reimbursing travel for this, so institutions will have to cover that, but otherwise it's a pretty low cost, great opportunity to network with others from around the state, and we're super excited about it. So good question.
For tenured track faculty, it's also a good thing to put on your CV. And for staff, it's a great professional development opportunity. So if folks are looking for ways to pitch it to their administration of why they should attend, there's two right there.
Good points, Dina. Any other questions that people might have about the Moss meetup or the next two virtual sessions? Well, did you enjoy today's session? Was it worth your time? Any feedback that you want to provide for commission staff or for the presenters or anybody else, or any other topics that you want us to consider covering in the future with our last 2 minutes of time?
Well, we appreciate the thank you from Kristen. And one of the things that we hope to be able to do is to provide a way for more of you to get together so that you can put a face to a name, you can have a conversation. Outside of ILA Annual, we're just kind of curious if there are other opportunities where people from different faculty and staff from different academic college libraries have a chance to get together. Are there other times that you find outside of ILA Annual, or maybe regional as well?
SWILA is going to be held at Boise State this year. Yeah. So I think there'll maybe be a stronger academic component. So you might put that on your schedule.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Well, again, we kind of hope to fill a little bit of what we see as a need there, and that is bringing you all together. So.
Okay, well, I think we'll just wrap up, and thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you hopefully in McCall, if not at one of the next 2 virtual meetups that we're planning in the next few months, and we will get the word out about those and email folks directly, as well as posting that in Lib Idaho and using some social media. So thank you again for our presenters today and for everybody who joined us, and have a great rest of the week.
Sorry, I'm finished up over. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.